They didn't expect the career analysts to choose sides. When the morning intelligence briefing was scheduled for yesterday, 3 chairs sat empty in the Oval Office. The CIA briefer never showed. The NSA liaison sent regrets. The FBI counterintelligence chief was suddenly unavailable. But here is what the White House didn't know: those same officials were across town at the Capitol, briefing Congress instead. The intelligence apparatus of the United States has quietly switched allegiances, and the president just became the least informed person in Washington. This isn't a coup. This is something far more dangerous. This is 26,000 intelligence professionals making the same calculations simultaneously. They've decided that the oath they swore to protect and defend the Constitution no longer includes the men sitting behind the Resolute Desk. And unlike a military coup which you can see coming, this rebellion is invisible. The phones still ring, the computers still hum, the satellites still orbit. But the intelligence they gather no longer flows upward to the commander-in-chief. It flows sideways to Congress, downward to state governments, and outward to allies who are quietly taking over America's role in global intelligence sharing. It started 3 weeks ago with a single leak. Not the kind of leak that makes headlines, but the kind that gets people killed. A highly classified CIA operation in Eastern Europe was blown within hours of being briefed to the White House. Assets were burned. Safe houses were raided. People died. The kind of people whose names you'll never know, but whose silence keeps the free world spinning. When the after-action report came back from Langley, the conclusion was devastating. The leak didn't come from a foreign mole or a disgruntled contractor. It came from someone in that Oval Office briefing. Someone who had sworn an oath to protect those secrets had sold them for political advantage. That's when the intelligence community made a decision that has never been made in American history. They would compartmentalize the President of the United States. They would treat him like a security risk. They would operate around him, not through him. The first sign was subtle. Daily briefs got shorter. Sources got vaguer. Details got classified at higher levels that required special clearances the White House staff didn't have. Within a week, the president's daily brief went from a comprehensive overview of global threats to what insiders started calling the coloring book: basic information presented in simple terms with no actionable intelligence. The kind of briefing you'd give to a freshman congressman, not the leader of the free world. But the president didn't notice the intelligence drought. He was too busy fighting other fires: the asset seizure crisis, the failed Greenland gambit, the economic chaos spreading from Tokyo to Toronto. While he raged at judges and tweeted at allies, the invisible government that actually keeps America safe was quietly writing him out of the equation. The moment everything changed was Tuesday morning. The president, desperate to project strength after a week of humiliating defeats, decided he wanted to authorize a military strike. Something decisive. Something that would change the narrative. Something that would remind the world that America still had teeth. But when he called for target options, something unprecedented happened. The Pentagon couldn't provide them. Not because they didn't want to, but because they didn't have current intelligence. The CIA hadn't briefed them. The NSA hadn't shared intercepts. The satellite imagery was weeks old. That's when the Secretary of Defense made a phone call that changed everything. He called the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee directly, not through channels, not through the White House. He explained the situation. The president wants to launch strikes, but we're operating blind. We need current intelligence, and the intelligence community isn't sharing it with the executive branch. What should we do? The congressman's answer was immediate. Come to the Hill. Bring your best people. We'll get you what you need. Within 6 hours, the Pentagon's senior staff was in a secure conference room in the Capitol basement, receiving the most comprehensive intelligence briefing they'd had in weeks. Not from White House officials, but from career CIA analysts, NSA technicians, and FBI counterterrorism experts. The same people who used to brief the president were now briefing Congress. And Congress was using that intelligence to brief the military. The chain of command hadn't been broken. It had been rerouted around the White House entirely. This is when panic set in, because the implications are staggering. If the intelligence community is briefing Congress but not the president, who's really running foreign policy? If the military is getting orders from the Hill instead of the Oval Office, who's really the commander-in-chief? If career analysts are making operational decisions without presidential oversight, who's accountable when those decisions go wrong? The answer is nobody and everybody. We are watching the emergence of a shadow government that operates with all the authority of the real government but none of the accountability. It's a system where career bureaucrats make life and death decisions based on their own interpretation of national security, not the electoral mandate of the American people. But here's the truly terrifying part. It's working. While the president fumes about imaginary deep state conspiracies, the actual deep state has stopped being theoretical. It's become operational, and it's more effective than the White House ever was. Intelligence is flowing faster. Decisions are being made more efficiently. International partnerships are being maintained more professionally. The machinery of American power is running more smoothly now that it's been disconnected from American politics. Our European allies noticed first. They stopped getting confused mixed signals from Washington. Instead of contradictory messages from the State Department, the Defense Department, and the White House, they started getting consistent, professional communication from career intelligence officers who understood the nuances of international relationships. NATO intelligence sharing, which had been strained by the president's erratic behavior, suddenly became seamless again. The Chinese noticed too, but they noticed something different. They noticed that American intelligence operations targeting their activities became more sophisticated, more coordinated, more effective. Without political interference, without Twitter diplomacy undermining careful intelligence work, the CIA and NSA were free to do what they do best. Beijing is facing a level of American intelligence pressure they haven't seen in decades. And they have no idea how to respond because they can't figure out who is giving the orders. Even the Russians are confused. They've spent years learning how to manipulate and predict the current administration. Suddenly, those psychological profiles are useless. The intelligence apparatus they've been trying to penetrate has gone dark in a way they never anticipated. Not because of better security, but because the people they've been targeting are no longer the people making the decisions. This is how empires transfer power without revolution. Not through violence in the streets, but through bureaucrats quietly changing which phone numbers they call. The Roman Senate didn't overthrow the emperor. They just stopped consulting him. The British Parliament didn't execute the king. They just passed laws without his signature. And the American intelligence community didn't arrest the president. They just started pretending he doesn't exist. But there's a catch. This shadow system only works as long as nobody talks about it. As long as the fiction of presidential authority is maintained. As long as the public believes the president is still in charge. The moment this invisible coup becomes visible, the moment the American people realize their elected leader has been neutered by unelected bureaucrats, the system collapses. Not into the old system, but into something entirely new. Something that's never existed in American history. A government of experts answerable to no one. We're watching the quiet death of democratic accountability. The intelligence professionals who made this decision believe they're saving the country from an incompetent leader. They may be right, but they're also destroying the principle that the American people get to choose their leaders, even bad ones. They're creating a system where the smartest people in the room make all the decisions, regardless of what the voters want. And once that system exists, once it proves it can operate effectively without democratic oversight, why would it ever give power back? Why would career intelligence professionals, who've seen the chaos that elections bring, ever again trust the American people to choose their leaders wisely? This is the paradox of the intelligence freeze. It's simultaneously the most patriotic and most treasonous act in American history. Patriotic because it's preserving American security in the face of presidential incompetence. Treasonous because it's overthrowing the constitutional order without firing a shot. The president still sits in the Oval Office. He still signs papers and gives speeches and meets with foreign leaders. But he's become a figurehead in his own administration. A constitutional monarch in a country that was never supposed to have kings. The real power now flows through secure phone lines between Langley and Capitol Hill, through encrypted communications between Fort Meade and the Pentagon, through back channels that bypass the White House entirely. Here's the most dangerous part. It's all starting to feel so normal. So efficient, so professional. Everything just runs better when politics is taken out of the equation. The career intelligence officers who made this choice, they don't see themselves as rebels. They see themselves as adults, cleaning up a mess left by children. Every day that passes without a major intelligence failure, every successful operation that happens without interference, every international crisis resolved by professional diplomacy instead of Twitter tantrums, it all reinforces their belief that they made the right choice. But democracy isn't supposed to be efficient. It's supposed to be accountable. And accountability means that even the experts have to answer to the voters, even when we make bad choices. The moment we decide some decisions are too important for democracy, we stop being one. We become something else. Something that might be more effective, more stable. But it's no longer America. Thanks for watching. What if I told you the fate of our entire country wasn't decided in the voting booth, but in a secret room by a handful of people you've never heard of? They call themselves a committee, an unseen hand guiding American democracy for generations. But when a young, idealistic staffer stumbles upon their existence, he discovers a conspiracy that goes deeper than he could ever imagine. Now, he's in a race against time, hunted by the very people sworn to protect the nation. With every move he makes, the line between patriot and traitor blurs. Can one man expose the truth before the committee makes its final, devastating move? Find out in a story where the biggest threat to freedom comes from within. You won't want to miss a single second. Subscribe for more.